It really started with the report of what the so-called Brundtland Commission was looking at sustainable development. That was at a time when the whole world was very focused on the worry about environmental damage that came from development and how the world would shift to cleaner forms of development. And it resulted in that Brundtland Commission report in the late 80s and then the Earth Summit in Rio in 1992. And that's where the new Framework Convention on Climate Change was signed. So it was a very exciting time, very interesting time. And it was a time when I felt that I was actually having some influence on government thinking because we were directly involved in some of the negotiations. We were a formal part of the Canadian delegation. And that's not to denigrate what's happening today, because it's great to see so many more businesses and so many more public interest groups involved. But it really felt like we were in on the ground floor on some really interesting developments. I think we've made a mistake, and I've said this many times before, in focusing so much on targets. And you know the history of this. We've set a series of targets going back to that first convention in 1992, in Kyoto in 1997, and at subsequent meetings. Both internationally and domestically, we've set targets that we really haven't made much success on, haven't been able to achieve. So it sends to me, it's a pretty clear lesson that we should focus less on setting those targets and more about how we're actually going to achieve them. So more focus on the policies, how they will work, what's most effective, how we engage all sectors of society in thinking about how it reduces emissions. You know, energy pervades everything that we do, and so everyone needs to be part of how we find those solutions to climate change. I think the main message from our latest report is instilling a sense of urgency. We have less than 7 years to meet a very ambitious 2030 climate target. We're seeing other countries move rapidly ahead with industrial strategies positioned around the net zero transition. We have tremendous opportunities in Canada, whether it's in critical minerals, whether it's in hydrogen, some of the things that the world needs, even our more sustainable LNG and agricultural products. We have significant opportunities, but the world's not going to sit around and wait for Canada to get its act together, and so we really need to think strategically about that. So that's why I say that the overall message is one of urgency. We've been we've been pushing this issue for the longest time in a very broad, targets-oriented conversation. We really need to get down to, okay, what is it we can actually do in Canada? Where are our competitive and comparative advantages, and how do we build on those? And we need to do that as quickly as possible because, as I say, the other countries are taking that approach and they're not waiting for us. Technology is going to be absolutely critical. There's a school of thought out there that says we already know all the technologies we need to reduce emissions and achieve net zero. I'm not convinced that that's the case, but even many of the technologies that people talk about, we need to figure out a way to use them much more efficiently and at much less cost. Whether that's everyone now is thinking about an electric vehicle, but we need to figure out how to make them much more cheaper to own and to operate, and that means reducing the cost of batteries, reducing the materials that go into batteries, and thinking about how to make them more affordable for Canadians. Because at the end of the day, people people understand that they need to do something and they want to do something, but they still want the same service and the convenience from all those things that they've come to rely on. I'm an optimist by nature. I see a lot of opportunity. I see a lot of commitment from the business community. And I think, I'm hopeful that we'll be a leader in at least a few areas. We can't hope to compete in all areas of the clean energy transition, but I'm hopeful that we can compete in a few of them and really be an example to the rest of the world about where the opportunities are and how you build public consensus and strong policy framework to make those things happen.